The 24th of July 1943, 0:58 hours. Hamburg, Germany. The river is black glass. No wind. No traffic. The city holds its breath. Then the sky begins to vibrate. Not loud at first, just a low, mechanical hum, distant and deliberate, as if the night itself has started to move. A sleeping dock worker stays. Somewhere, a dog howls once and goes silent. High above the cloud layer, unseen shapes slide forward in perfect formation. Inside a reinforced concrete bunker on the outskirts of Hamburg, a Luftwaffe radar operator leans closer to his scope. The green glow reflects in his eyes as contacts bloom across the screen. Dozens, then hundreds, approaching fast from the northwest. A bomber stream. Too large. He adjusts the range. The return smear. He adjusts again. The screen grows crowded, chaotic, alive with motion that refuses to make sense. What altitude? An officer snaps. The operator swallows. Unclear. The word hangs in the air. Outside, the first Pathfinder flares fall. They descend slowly, parachutes opening like pale flowers in the dark. As they drift, the city is sketched into visibility. Canals, rail yards, warehouses, every shape outlined in cold white light. Hamburg is no longer asleep. It is exposed. Above 20,000 feet, the bombers press on. Avro Lancasters, handily Page Halifaxes, short Sterlings, black silhouettes against the darker sky. Engines thrum in steady rhythm, vibrating through aluminum skin and bone alike. Inside one Lancaster, the air is thin and bitter cold. Frost creeps along the inside of the canopy. Oxygen masks hiss softly. Red instrument lights glow like embers. The navigator traces a finger along the chart, voice tight but calm. Course steady. Wind within tolerance. The pilot nods, eyes locked forward, knuckles pale against a control column. Below them, the first bombs fall. They drop silently at first, tumbling end over end, gravity stretching the seconds. Then the city erupts. Orange fireballs punch through rooftops. Shockwaves ripple outward, slamming doors and shattering windows. A row of buildings collapses inward as if pulled by invisible hands. The anti-aircraft guns answer. Flak bursts blossom in the sky, black flowers opening and closing around the bombers. The aircraft shudders as a near miss rocks the fuselage. Shrapnel screams past the wing. A gunner curses, then laughs too loudly, adrenaline spilling over. Back in the radar bunker, the scope is useless now. The clean lines of the bomber stream had dissolved into noise. The screen crawls with false echoes, returns stacked on top of returns, impossible speeds, impossible altitudes. It looks like the sky has shattered. Recheck calibration. The officer barks. They already have. Again and again. Nothing changes. Orders pour in from higher command. Bearings. Vectors. Numbers. The operator has none to give. His training tells him this is impossible. Radar does not lie. But tonight, it is lying constantly. Above Hamburg, more flares fall. Target markers burn crimson, then green, then white hot. The city center is painted with merciless precision. Bomb aimers lie flat in the noses of their aircraft, peering through glass at streets they cannot hear, cannot smell, only see. Bomb bay doors open. Steel cylinders fall away, followed by incendiaries that scatter like sparks from a grinder. Fires ignite in dozens of places at once. A warehouse burns. A factory roof caves in. An apartment block catches and spreads flame from floor to floor. On the ground, people run. They flood into streets clutching children, papers, whatever they can carry. Air raid wardens shout directions that lead nowhere. Shelters fill beyond capacity. Doors slam shut against the screams outside. The fires begin to link. A strange wind rises, not from weather, but from heat. Flames lean inward, drawing air from surrounding streets. Burning embers lift and travel, skipping across canals and rooftops. Hamburg starts to breathe fire. Inside the bomber stream, something feels wrong. All right. The wireless operator listens to the radio chatter. Fighter interceptions are scattered. Flak is light, too light. Loss reports are minimal. They train for worse than this. Much worse. Somewhere behind them, something flutters past the fuselage. Thin, metallic, almost weightless. It glints once in the moonlight before vanishing into the dark. Inside the cockpit, no one remarks on it. There is no time. The city below is growing brighter, the smoke thicker, the sky turbulent with rising heat columns that buffet the aircraft. Back in the bunker, the radar operator slams his fist against the console. The scope is snow. Static. Echoes. Ghosts. The sky has become unreadable. And in that moment, though he does not yet know why, he understands that tonight is different. This is not a failure of men or machines. This is something new. Above Hamburg, the firestorm tightens its grip. Wind howls through streets at hurricane force, feeding the inferno. Temperatures climb beyond endurance. Oxygen is ripped from basements and shelters. Candles gut out. People collapse where they stand. The city becomes its own weather system. From miles away, bomber crews can see the glow punching through cloud layers, painting the undersides of their aircraft a hellish red. Smoke towers upward, twisting, alive with lightning born of heat and ash. The pilot holds course, training over instinct. He does not look down again, because below, Hamburg is no longer a city. It is a furnace, and far from the flames, across the North Sea, men wait beside radios and plotting boards, listening to reports that should not be possible. Radar blind, enemy defenses confused, losses far below expectation. A word begins to circulate, quietly, cautiously, effective. No one yet understands how, but the answer is already falling, drifting, multiplying, turning certainty into illusion. And the night is not finished. 6 weeks earlier, June 1943, High Wycombe, England. The room smells of cigarette smoke and damp uniforms. Maps cover the walls, Germany carved into grids, red circles drawn and redrawn around cities already struck and cities yet to burn. Senior officers sit with arms folded, faces hard from years of losses and sleepless nights. At the head of the table, Air Vice Marshal Arthur Harris listens. The proposal is simple, too simple. A scientist clears his throat and holds up a small bundle of metallic strips. Aluminum, cut to precise lengths. Lightweight, almost laughable compared to the tonnage of explosives discussed daily in this room. Dropped in sufficient quantity, the man says carefully, they will reflect radar pulses. To enemy screens, they will appear as aircraft. Hundreds, thousands. A pause. Then someone chuckles. Another officer shakes his head. You're telling me we win the air war with tinfoil? Laughter ripples around the table. Nervous, dismissive, Bomber Command has buried too many crews to believe in miracles. Harris does not laugh. He studies the strips in silence, fingers drumming once against the table. He knows the objections. Everyone in the room does. The enemy will copy it. Radar deception will become meaningless. The advantage will vanish overnight. That fear has frozen this idea for years. Outside the room, bomber crews keep dying. Night after night, aircraft are tracked, intercepted, torn apart by flak and fighters guided unerringly by radar eyes that never blink. Harris finally speaks. How many aircraft do we lose on an average raid? No one answers immediately. They all know. Too many. He leans forward. And how many will we lose if we do nothing? Silence again. This time, heavier. The decision is not recorded with ceremony. No dramatic signatures. No applause. Just an order. Approved. Window will be used. Only once at first. They say, a test. A gamble. If it fails, it will be buried quietly. If it succeeds, no one finishes the thought. Back in the present, over Germany, the gamble unfolds. As the bomber stream pushes deeper inland, more bundles are released. Crewmen feed them into chutes by the armful, hands numb in the freezing air. The strips burst outward, spreading, drifting, creating invisible corridors of deception. The sky fills with lies. On the ground, German fighter controllers shout into microphones that carry only confusion. Night fighters circle aimlessly, fuel gauges ticking downward as their prey slips through unseen. Flak batteries fire at phantom formations. Shells burst where nothing exists. Ammunition dumps empty themselves into darkness. Real bombers pass through the gaps. Unchallenged. Inside one aircraft, the rear gun appears into the night, waiting for the familiar sight of trace of fire climbing toward him. It never comes. He feels exposed, naked without the chaos he expects. This is wrong, he mutters into his mask. But wrong has never felt so safe. Below, the firestorm intensifies. Entire blocks ignite at once. The wind howls louder now, a living thing dragging oxygen inward. People attempting to flee are knocked down, pulled toward the flames. Asphalt softens beneath their feet. Metal railings glow dull red. Shelters become ovens. Above, the bomber crews feel the turbulence change. Rising columns of hot air buffet their aircraft violently. Instruments jitter. Pilots fight for control as the sky itself turns hostile. Yet still, no fighters. No concentrated flak. Loss reports remain astonishingly low. Hours later, as the last aircraft turn west, the truth begins to dawn inside the cockpits. They are coming home. Most of them. Across England, radios crackle with call signs returning. One by one, then in groups, then in a steady stream that should not be possible after a raid of this scale. Ground crews stare as aircraft roll in with minimal damage. Empty dispersal pens fill again. Engines shut down. Crews climb out, exhausted, shaking, alive. Intelligence officers collect reports late into the morning. The numbers refuse to change no matter how many times they are checked. Losses are a fraction of expectation. Hamburg is burning, and the Luftwaffe never truly found them. In Germany, the realization spreads more slowly. Radar technicians comb through logs, recalibrate equipment, rerun simulations. The data will not cooperate. The screen showed aircraft where none existed, and missed those that mattered. Then someone brings in a handful of aluminum strips. They are found everywhere. Fields, rooftops, rivers, tangled in trees like festive decoration from a night maze celebration. Engineers measure them. Cut to radar wavelength. Perfect. The laughter is gone now, replaced by something colder. Because if the enemy has crossed this line once, they will cross it again. And next time, the fires may fall somewhere else. Somewhere closer. The sky has been rewritten, and both sides know it. The question now is who adapts faster. Morning light creeps across England, pale and uncertain. At bomber stations scattered across the countryside, men stand beside aircraft that should not be there. Lancasters with scorched exhaust but intact wings. Halifaxes with flak scars that never found flesh. Crews slumped on ammunition boxes, helmets still on, staring at the ground as if it might disappear. They are home. Inside intelligence rooms, the mood is almost superstitious. Loss boards are updated once. Then again, numbers are rechecked, recalculated, argued over. They do not change. For a raid of this scale, deep penetration, concentrated target, dense defenses, the losses should be catastrophic. They are not. A staff officer finally exhales. It worked! No one smiles. Because now comes a question no one wants to ask. Why? Reports arrive from crews in fragments. Mentions of silver rain. Of thin metallic strips fluttering past cockpit windows. Of radar silence where chaos was expected. The scientists are summoned. In a quiet room, far from the dispersal fields, the explanation is laid bare. Radar waves, reflection, resonance, aluminum cut to precise lengths, each strip a perfect liar. What the enemy sees is not aircraft. It is echoes, thousands of them. A senior officer rubs his temples. They'll copy it. Yes, comes the reply. Eventually. How long? A pause. Long enough. Across the channel, in Germany, the reckoning begins. At Luftwaffe command centers, confidence gives way to anger. Radar crews are interrogated. Equipment is torn apart, recalibrated, tested. Engineers insist the machines function correctly. They did. The problem was the sky. At one radar site, a technician spread collected aluminum strips across a table. He measures them carefully, jaw tightening with each confirmation. Cut to wavelength. Exact. This was no improvisation. It was deliberate. The realization spread through command channels like ice water. The enemy did not overpower the defenses. They walked around them. In Hamburg, the aftermath deepens. Smoke still coils from the ruins days later. The city center is a blackened expanse. Streets are razed. Landmarks reduce to skeletal silhouettes. Refugees stream outward in endless columns. Women pushing carts, children clutching blankets, old men staring back over their shoulders at a city that no longer exists. The death toll climbs with every hour. And with it, the pressure. In Berlin, questions become accusations. Why were fighters ineffective? Why was flak misdirected? Why did the radar, Germany's great shield, fail so completely? There are no comforting answers. Only one truth. The air war has changed. Back in England, planning rooms grow quieter, more focused. The success over Hamburg is dissected down to the smallest detail. Routes, timings, release patterns, quantities of window per mile. This is no longer an experiment. It is doctrine. RAF Bomber Command begins rewriting its assumptions. Penetration routes expand. Targets once considered too dangerous are placed back on the map. Confidence hardens, not into arrogance, but into momentum. Air Vice Marshal Arthur Harris reads the reports without comment. He has seen enough nights to know victory never comes clean. But this buys time. Time measured in lives not lost over blacked-out Germany. Across the Reich, countermeasures are proposed. New radar filters, alternative frequencies, visual interception doctrines. None can be implemented overnight. And overnight is where this war is fought. Another raid is planned. Another target marked. Another sky seeded with deception. The enemy now knows a trick. But knowing is not the same as stopping it. And as the next bomber stream forms up in the darkness, one thing is certain. The laughter is gone. On both sides. Late July 1943. Reichsheer Ministry, Berlin. The conference room is sealed. Curtains drawn. Voices low. Maps of northern Germany lie spread across the table. Hamburg at the center, circled, shaded, scarred with grease pencil marks. Officers stand instead of sit. No one wants to be seen as comfortable. A senior Luftwaffe general breaks the silence. This cannot happen again. No one answers. Because everyone in the room knows it will. Reports are read aloud. Radar stations blinded. Night fighters vectored toward phantom formations. Flak belts firing themselves empty at nothing. The words sound clinical, but the implications are not. Germany's air defense, led, disciplined, methodical, was outmaneuvered without a fight. Not by speed, not by firepower, by confusion. At a radar installation outside Bremen, operators replay the night in their minds. They remember the moment the screen bloomed, returns multiplying until the picture collapsed into noise. Training had no answer for that. Doctrine offered no solution. Radar was meant to clarify the night. Instead, it betrayed them. Engineers proposed fixes. Narrow the beam. Adjust gain. Change frequencies. New filters are sketched out on chalkboards, arrows, and equations chasing certainty. But equipment takes time. And time is what they no longer have, because the bombers are coming again. In the air, the Luftwaffe adapts the only way it can, by abandoning trust in the instruments. Night fighters are sent up on probability, not vectors. Pilots scan the darkness with naked eyes, searching for exhaust flames and silhouettes against the stars. It is like hunting with a blindfold. Some find targets by chance. Many find nothing at all. Flak commanders widen their firing patterns, turning the sky into a guessed-at grid of explosions. Ammunition consumption skyrockets. Effectiveness plummets. Every solution creates a new weakness. Meanwhile, in England, the tempo increases. Planning rooms hum late into the night. Routes are adjusted to exploit confusion. Feints are added, small bomber streams laying chaff corridors to draw defenses away from the real strike. The sky becomes layered with lies. For the crews, the feeling is surreal. Missions that once felt like suicide now feel, if not safe, then survivable. The tension remains, but it has changed shape. Fear is no longer constant. It comes in spikes, in moments of turbulence or sudden flak bursts, not in the grinding certainty of interception. They still die. But fewer, and fewer matters. Over occupied Europe, aluminum strips fall night after night, collecting in fields, rivers, streets. Civilians find them tangled in hedges, glittering faintly in daylight. Children pick them up, curious, unaware they are touching the edge of a revolution. In German command circles, frustration turns inward. Accusations surface. Someone must be blamed. Radar crews, technicians, fighter controllers. The truth is harder to face. The system worked exactly as designed, which means the design is obsolete. Hamburg becomes a reference point. Every briefing circles back to it. Every projection is measured against it. The phrase "another Hamburg" begins to haunt conversations, unspoken but present. Because if one city could be erased under the cover of deception, then any city could. And the RAF has many cities. As summer fades toward autumn, a grim understanding settles in. The air war is no longer about seeing the enemy first. It is about deceiving him longer. And somewhere, already forming in the darkness, is the next bomber stream. Routes calculated, chaff bundles stacked, crews briefed. The shield has cracked. The question now is whether it can be reforged before the next blow lands. Autumn 1943. Night skies over Europe. The bomber stream forms up in darkness once again. Engines settle into their long, patient rhythm. Navigation lights blink briefly, then vanish. Aircraft slide into position by instinct and discipline, each crew trusting the others to hold formation in a sky that no longer tells the truth. Below them, the continent waits. Radar stations come alive. Scopes glow. Operators lean forward. And then, the screens begin to lie. Returns multiply. Contacts bloom and smear. Targets appear, overlap, dissolve. Controllers hesitate, issuing vectors they no longer believe in, sending fighters chasing shapes that refuse to behave like aircraft. The aluminum rain falls quietly, not dramatic, not violent, just effective. Night fighters climb anyway. Pilots strain their eyes, searching for exhaust flames against blackness. Sometimes they find them. Often they do not. Fuel runs low. Frustration builds. The sky feels endless, empty, hostile. Flak batteries fire on instinct now, not precision. The sky fills with Gestapo bursts, thunder without certainty. Ammunition stocks drain faster than results appear. And through the confusion, the bombers pass. Bomb doors open. Again, targets burn. Not always Hamburg. Sometimes it is an industrial town. Sometimes a rail hub. Sometimes a city whose name will never be remembered outside its own ruins. What matters is not the target. What matters is the pattern. Each raid reinforces a lesson learned that July night, air defense is no longer about strength alone. It is about perception, about who controls a picture. In England, the doctrine hardens. Deception becomes standard. Chaff corridors are planned with the same care once reserved for bomb loads. Feints are laid over real attacks. The sky is shaped before the first bomb ever falls. In Germany, adaptation struggles to keep pace. Filters improve. Tactics shift. Some interceptions succeed. But the old certainty is gone forever. Radar is no longer an oracle. It is a suggestion. For the men who fly, the change is measured in faces that return to mess halls, in bunks that remain occupied, in letters written home instead of telegrams sent by strangers. For those below, the cost is measured in ashes. History will argue over morality, over necessity, over consequence. But in the cold mathematics of war, one truth stands unchallenged. A handful of aluminum strips, once laughed at in a smoke-filled briefing room, tilted the balance of the air war, not by destroying the enemy's weapons, but by convincing them, for a few crucial hours, that the sky itself could no longer be trusted. From that night on, every aircraft that flew into combat carried more than bombs. It carried deception, and the war in the air would never again be fought in the open.